There's something profoundly unsettling about the realization that the person you're drawn to romantically might not be chosen for their capacity to love you, but rather for their uncanny ability to recreate the exact emotional landscape you grew up in. We often pride ourselves on learning from past relationships, on growing wiser with each heartbreak, yet find ourselves mysteriously attracted to partners who trigger the same wounds, activate the same insecurities, and leave us feeling the same particular brand of emptiness we thought we'd outgrown. Have you ever noticed how certain people can make you feel instantly at home? Not because they're nurturing or safe, but because their dysfunction feels familiar. This isn't coincidence, nor is it a sign of poor judgment. What you're experiencing is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. The unconscious drive to recreate and resolve unfinished emotional business from our past through the very relationships we hope will heal us. When we examine the neuroscience of attachment and trauma, we discover that our brains are literally wired to seek out what psychologist Harville Hendricks calls imago relationships, partnerships that mirror our earliest caregiving experiences. The limbic system doesn't distinguish between what's healthy and what's familiar. It simply gravitates toward what it recognizes, even when that recognition stems from childhood wounds rather than mature love. Number one, you feel most attracted to them when they're pulling away. This phenomenon stems from intermittent reinforcement, where the brain releases dopamine during moments of uncertainty. If you grew up with inconsistent caregiving, emotional unavailability actually triggers your attachment system more powerfully than consistent love. The chase becomes intoxicating because it mirrors your earliest template for how relationships operate. Number two, conflict feels more natural than peace. When calm moments in your relationship feel strange or uncomfortable, it often indicates that your nervous system has been conditioned to expect chaos. If your childhood was filled with emotional volatility, your brain may have learned to equate love with drama, making healthy stability feel foreign or even boring. Number three, you constantly feel like you're walking on eggshells. This hypervigilance around your partner's moods mirrors the survival mechanisms many develop in unpredictable childhood environments. You find yourself becoming an expert at reading their emotional states, anticipating their needs, and modifying your behavior to avoid triggering their reactions, just as you may have done with an unstable parent or caregiver. Number four, their criticism sounds eerily familiar. When your partner's words echo messages you heard growing up about not being good enough, being too sensitive, or being difficult, it's often because you've unconsciously chosen someone who expresses love in the same conditional way you first learned it. The familiar sting of criticism can feel oddly comforting because it confirms beliefs you already hold about yourself. Number five, you feel responsible for fixing or saving them. If you're drawn to partners with addiction, mental health issues, or chronic instability, you might be unconsciously recreating the role of the parentified child. This compulsion to rescue stems from early experiences where your worth was tied to taking care of others' emotional needs, making you feel most valuable when you're needed rather than simply wanted. Number six, you make excuses for behavior you'd never tolerate from friends. This double standard often indicates trauma bonding, where intermittent kindness creates powerful psychological attachments that override logical boundaries. The neurochemical cocktail of stress and relief creates an addiction-like cycle that can feel more intense than stable love, making you rationalize treatment that your rational mind knows is unacceptable. Number seven, you feel most comfortable when giving more than receiving. If genuine care and attention from your partner makes you uncomfortable or suspicious, it often reflects early experiences where love felt conditional or dangerous. You may have learned that being vulnerable leads to disappointment, making it safer to stay in the familiar role of the giver rather than risk the uncertainty of being truly seen and cared for. Number eight, physical symptoms arise during relationship stress. When conflict triggers physical responses like insomnia, digestive issues, or panic attacks, your body is often responding to the relationship as a threat rather than a source of comfort. This somatic reaction indicates that your nervous system recognizes something familiar and dangerous about the dynamic, even when your conscious mind wants to make it work. Number nine, you're attracted to their potential rather than their reality. This pattern often stems from growing up with caregivers who showed glimpses of the love you needed, but never consistently delivered. You become skilled at seeing what someone could become rather than accepting who they are. recreating that childhood hope that if you just love hard enough, they'll finally transform into the person you need them to be. Number 10, the relationship feels like an emotional emergency. Healthy love shouldn't require constant crisis management, but when you're dating your trauma, the relationship often feels like a series of emergencies that need managing. This chronic state of fight or flight mirrors the hypervigilance many develop in unstable childhood environments, where love and threat became neurologically linked. Understanding these patterns isn't about judgment, but about consciousness. When we recognize that our attraction patterns are often trauma responses rather than authentic preferences, we can begin rewiring our emotional associations and choosing partners from a place of healing rather than woundedness. This doesn't mean dismissing chemistry, but learning to distinguish between healthy excitement and trauma activation. The journey toward healthier relationships requires grieving the fantasy that love will heal our deepest wounds. While relationships can be healing, they cannot undo childhood trauma or fill voids created by early neglect. That healing work must happen within us before we can choose partners who complement our wholeness rather than complete our brokenness. Perhaps the most profound realization is that breaking these patterns often means choosing partners who initially feel less exciting because your nervous system isn't being activated by familiar dysfunction. Learning to find comfort in consistency, excitement in emotional safety, and passion in genuine intimacy becomes the real work of healing. What patterns have you recognized in your own relationships? And how might this awareness help you distinguish between the familiar pull of trauma and the quieter call of genuine love?